Okay, so that's another one to the lure being retrieved. Today we're testing the tide is running that way. We're retrieving with the tide now. This is something that I've often wondered about, and anglers have argued about this for years. And there's another fish on the same weedless lure. There we go, a nice wrasse on the Renaissance V2. There's a fish. What an absolute beauty. So on this test today, we are going to see whether it makes any difference at all to retrieve the lure with the tide, against the tide, or across the tide. Today we're testing whether retrieve direction makes any difference. What's the difference between retrieving the lure with the tide, retrieving the lure against the tide, or retrieving it across the tide? This is something that I've often wondered about, and anglers have argued about this for years. I don't know whether it will make any difference at all. Maybe if the bass are feeding, they don't much care. Or maybe they want to see a lure swimming in the direction of the tide, which is maybe the way that the bait fish will usually swim. Maybe across the tide's better. First of all, we've got to find some feeding fish. If we can do that, we're going to test it. Stay tuned. We're going to fish the last of the ebb tide, then there'll be a period of slack water where the fishing tends to go off, and then we'll pick up the flood tide, and that's usually here where the fishing really turns on the flood tide. Wow, the conditions look absolutely perfect today. It's going to be a good day. I can feel it in me bones. Okay, so here we are. Now our first task is to try and find some feeding gulls. And there's nothing that I can see working Christchurch Ledge. No gulls working yet. I'm sure they will, but not quite yet. Oh yes, yes indeed. We found a brilliant patch of gulls over there, just on the edge of Christchurch Ledge. It's just what we wanted to see. Let's go and get amongst them. Okay, so here we are. We got bass. We're right on the surface here. I'm right on the surface. We're right in front of us. So this is against the tide. The first drift against the tide. Let's see how we go. There's birds all round us. There's birds all round us. There's feeding fish on the surface. Interestingly, not taking that lure. We're going to go straight away. We're going to swap straight away over to a surface lure. What we're going to try now is the smallest surface lure in our box, which is this one. It's a Pachenko. It's the smallest one we've got. I don't like those trebles, but it is what it is. I haven't got time to swap them over for singles. Let's try that. Tiny little Pachenko, the smallest surface lure in the box that we've got. Let's see if we can get them on that. I think these fish have got so much bait here, that why would they take a lure if they can take an actual fish? You know, so now we've got the Pachenko on, and it's a surface lure that will just work and work it, walking the dog motion. See if we can get into these that way. We're going to change it up here, trying a surface lure. This lure, 50p on Temu. The fish are literally everywhere. Incredible fishing. And a boat's just left. Those guys have been fishing here There's birds working all over the place. There's fish feeding, and they've left. Right, well, this is really quite incredible. There's bass everywhere, or there's fish everywhere, there's birds everywhere. I can see them on the surface, and I can't get them to take a hit. I can't get them to hit anything. We've tried a soft plastic. We're trying a surface lure now, because that's what I'm hoping they're going to be taking. We're going to pivot again. We're going to try something different. Even though they're on the surface, we're going to try and go deeper. Right, let's try this. The old favourite, Skerries Pro. It's interesting that that boat has left while they're obviously feeding fish. We're just going to go up into them a bit more. But when I would have expected to get a hit then. There's some feeding fish here, but Lord only knows what they're feeding on. Oh, hello. So, we've got one, we've hooked one. That is the first fish against the tide. First fish with the retrieve against the tide. Slower than I'd expect. That one is 39 centimetres. Back he goes. Okay, let's try again. You can see them all around me. Look at them here, look at them. They're everywhere. We've tried a surface lure, they didn't want it. So we're going with this small Skerries Pro instead. But we are here against the tide again. This retrieve is against the tide. A hit then against the tide. Try again. It's not as prolific though. I was expecting hits straight away. Look at the fish, you can see them all around me here. Can you see them on the surface? Oh, there we go. There we go. Did you see that? We just let it go. We let the lure down. And there we go, another fish. Another one. Small fish. Back you go. Now. Okay, let's go with the tide now, see if that makes any difference. Does retrieving with the tide get a quicker hit? Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Right, we're going to swap. We're going to swap lures. Because this one, I may have caught a couple of fish, but they should be hitting it within seconds. Okay, so look, let's try this tiny, tiny little metal. See if the tiny metal will cause them to hit quicker. This one against the tide we're going now. And they don't want this one either. Okay, so I'm going to swap lures again. Okay, now we're going to retrieve this with the tide. Okay, now let's try against the tide. Oh, well, that was a bit. That just hit the water and the fish hit it straight away. So that really wasn't didn't even retrieve it, and it just hit it. Nice. This one might be a netter. This one. There we go. There's a fish which I think is probably just about sizable, this one. Be careful not to touch the gills. He whacked that hard. No, he didn't. He spat it out. There we go. How big's this one? Let's have a look. That one is just 42 centimetres. It's actually 42 and a half. Turn that live well on. Wow. Thirsty work this. Next thing. Look, Mum, I'm putting my sun cream on, don't worry. Back of the hands, remember guys, back of the hands, that's where it gets you. Probably not a pretty sight, smeared it all over myself, but a bit of sun cream. Okay, so the bass fishing's gone quiet, so we're going to drift over the Christchurch ledge here. So we're going to drift over the reef here, looking for wrasse. Look, this is the lure we're using. It's a weedless lure, small pattern, and it jinks. It's got black on the top, white on the bottom, and when you jerk it underwater, it flashes. And the wrasse don't seem to be able to resist it, and they just snatch at it. Let's see if we can get some wrasse on this weedless lure here. Okay, so the tide is running that way. So we're going to cast down tide and then retrieve the lure against the tide. So nothing on that drift against the tide. Now we've cast up tide, we're retrieving with the tide now. See if that makes any difference. So, nothing there with the tide. Now let's try across the tide. Going across the tide, does that make any difference? There's a fish across the tide, and it's a wrasse. There we go. There we go, a nice wrasse, retrieving the lure across the tide. There's a fish. There's a fish. And this one was across the tide. Across the tide. Another nice wrasse here. Another nice wrasse there that's fallen again to the lure being retrieved across the tide. So that's 2 casts with the tide, nothing. 2 casts against the tide, nothing again. 2 casts across the tide, and we had 2 wrasse. Let's keep going, we'll keep testing. And there's another fish across the tide. Doesn't look like a big one, it's only a small wrasse again. And there's a wrasse on the same weedless lure. Across the tide again. across the tide. There we go. Lovely fish. This wrasse fishing is really great fun. When the bass go off, if the bass stop feeding and the gulls aren't working, the wrasse is just so reliable. And there's such great sport on this light lure tackle. Really, really underrated sport fish, the wrasse. I love them. Now we're trying against the tide. All the wrasse we caught was across the tide. Getting anything against the tide, very interesting. Really, very, very interesting. And having said that, look at that. We've hooked one. We've hooked one. No, we haven't. It's a decent wrasse. There we are. Well, we did hook him, but we got him out. We got him out. He went in there. There we go. Here's another fish. Another one. Another wrasse on the same lure. Look at that weedless lure. Absolutely, absolutely deadly. Now that one we cast and we retrieved against the tide. So that one is against the tide. So the wrasse fishing here is absolutely on fire with this lure. This is brilliant. If you look at the lure, underneath it's got a white belly and on top it's got a black side, and it flashes and jinks underwater. But I think that really triggers the wrasse into attacking the lure. This lure is absolutely deadly on the bass and the wrasse today. I'll stick a link at the end where you can get 20% off this lure. Right, so we're in again, across the tide again. Oh, you see that? Now that was a bass. That was a bass across the tide. We'll count that. You saw it fly out there, fly off. Anyway, that was a bass. How did I lose that one? Ah. So we're retrieving with the tide this time. Nothing yet. Let's see if we get a hit. Retrieving with the tide. Nothing. No. So that's nothing on that cast, retrieving with the tide. Okay, so that's nothing there on the wrasse retrieving with the tide. So we're going to retrieve against the tide this time. Let's see if we can get anything this way. And as it's against the tide, the action's going to be slightly different. It's going to stop quicker and fall sharper as I'm retrieving it against the tide. When I'm retrieving it with the tide, it will fall more gently. And then when I'm retrieving across the tide, it's different again. So now we're going across the tide. Nothing with the tide, nothing against the tide. Let's see if we get something now retrieving across the tide. There we go, across the tide again. And it's another wrasse. Another nice wrasse. Look at the colours on that one. What an absolute beauty. I love the way these wrasse are all so different. That Ballon wrasse, there we go. You can see, there's the lure. Beautiful wrasse. Just pop him in the tank and we'll have a look at them all later. Another one across the tide. Interestingly, that's a few wrasse now that I've had retrieving the lure directly across the tide. I don't know if that's just luck or whether it's a pattern or why the wrasse might be doing that. Who knows? Maybe the lure's more natural going across the tide. Maybe it gets easier into the nooks and crannies in the reef. I don't know. But we're using that weedless pattern, which means we can really bounce the lure off the bottom and it doesn't matter. It's not going to get snagged. And there's a fish on. We got a fish. A nice fish, and it's another wrasse. Look at that. Look at that. Another wrasse on the same lure. Okay, so that's another one across the tide. There's another fish. This one was across the tide. And yet again, it's another wrasse. Another wrasse. Another wrasse on the Renaissance V2. We've had, in an hour and a half, we've had half a dozen wrasse. Really good sport on that Renaissance V2 lure. I've kept them all in the tank. They've been in the tank long enough. So what I'm going to do, let's just take a look at them first. There they all are. Look at these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wrasse there. Most of them caught across the tide, retrieving the lure across the tide, but a couple were caught with the tide and against the tide. But I think on balance, definitely across the tide seemed to work better for the wrasse. What a lovely, lovely load of fish there are there. These two, look at these beauties. Away you go. Let's release those. Away they go. Handling them as little as I can. Look at those beauties. And one more, we can turn that off now. The last one to go back. Beautiful. So that brings to an end what's been a brilliant day's fishing. We've had bass, we've had wrasse, and we've caught fish on every style of retrieve, whether it's with the tide, against the tide, or across the tide. But whilst the bass, the results were inconclusive, we were catching them amongst feeding birds, and I don't think the direction matters so much in those situations because they're just in a bit of a feeding frenzy and the bait's going all over the place. But for the wrasse, it was very clear that the retrieve across the tide did better. We've had probably 8 or 9 wrasse now, and the big majority of them were caught fishing across the tide. So it may be the conditions, who knows, it may not be a rule. There's all sorts of reasons why this may have happened. I don't know the answer. All I know is that's the result of the test. So this is the small size Renaissance V2 lure from Ebbrox. It's weedless. See that? You just don't catch it, and there's a really sharp hook under there, but it doesn't catch the weed. And the best thing about this lure is it hasn't got one of those really fiddly connections that a lot of weedless lures have, which means after a couple of fish the hook comes out. This hook is always stuck in the lure and it's always fishing properly. I really like it. If you want to check these lures out for yourself, for my subscribers I've got a code BassLureFish20 where you can get 20% off these lures at ebbrox.com. I think there's 100 uses for the discount code, so grab it while you can. What's not to like about that? That's BassLureFish20, 20% off at ebbrox.com. So that's the 5th different test that we've now run in this series. You've seen lure colour, does that make a difference? You've seen lure size, does that make a difference? Then we had the difference between tiny metal jigs and soft plastics. We tested whether that made a difference. we definitely unlocked the code with that one. Last Sunday's video was all about the speed of retrieve, and we did that test about active versus static retrieve offshore on the banks with bass. That's really, really interesting. You should go and have a look at that one. So thanks everybody for joining another adventure, another test in this series of tests. We are going to test absolutely everything. Every week, every Sunday night at 7 o'clock, we will upload a new test. You tell us in the comments if there's something you'd like us to test on bass fishing, pollock fishing, wrasse fishing. As long as it's lure fishing, that's all we do on here. It's got to be lure fishing. We don't do bait. We don't ever anchor. We're always lure fishing on the drift. As long as you can do that, then we'll do it. So every Sunday, 7 o'clock, we'll be uploading a new test. Keep an eye out for them. Tight lines, everybody.